America, it's time to man up. It's time to face the facts. It's time to grow a spine and stop kicking the can down the road for the next guy. It's time to get real. If we don't, we will get exactly what we deserve. Now, that may be harsh, but I think we're exactly the same. Both of us would rather deal with the harsh warning now rather than the harsh consequences of ignoring the warning later. To quote Thomas Jefferson, God who gave us life gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gifts of God? Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just and his justice cannot sleep forever. We have a choice laid out before us, two paths, two futures. But the one that America will choose will be chosen because of one word: leadership. But who is that leader and where are they leading us to? What does that word even mean anymore? I'll get to that here in a second. I want to bring you back to this. This hung in my office wall in New York for quite some time. It's now in the studios here in Dallas, Texas. I've shared Dietrich Bonhoeffer and his story with you a million times. He was a guy who was warning the Germans about the deadly path that they were heading down. And a friend gave this to me, actually. Eric Metaxas gave this to me. And the reason why I put this in my office is because what it says right here at the bottom of this. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. God has blessed this nation beyond anything this planet has ever seen before. And if we turn our backs in arrogance and forfeit what has been handed to us to preserve, we will not be held guiltless. And we're not only going to be held guiltless by God, but by our children and by our grandchildren as well. The truth isn't always easy to accept. But the truth is really pretty easy to see at this point, where it wasn't just a few years ago. Let me show you what's been going on around the world. Investors now prepare for a euro collapse. What a surprise, the bailouts aren't working. How many times does this have to happen before we realize we're only buying time? The euro will collapse. But instead of asking people to get prepared, our leaders all around the world cling to the false hopes that government can fix it. How many times do you have to go down this road before the lies stop and the serious work of preparing people begins? I thought of this the other day. And over the next couple of stories, I just want you to ask yourself this. How unreasonable is it that now in America it's unreasonable for a leader to seriously sit down with the American people and say, hey, you know what? Maybe this summer you should can. Maybe this summer you should turn off your TV and you should be with your kids a little bit more and read to them and read something important to them. Maybe you should save some of your money. How unreasonable is that? Instead, that is the unreasonable thing, and the reasonable thing for politicians to say is go out and spend money, everything's fine, when we all know and they know it's not. There isn't a single leader out there. Name one. Name a leader in the world that is standing in front of the people and saying, you got to prepare, it's going to be tough. We're going to make it, we're going to survive, but it's going to be tough. Name them. I can't. Look at the powder keg we're sitting on. Turn to Israel for a second. Iran and Israel. The tension continues to rise. And now, many believe a strike on Iran's nuclear facility will happen before the November 6th U.S. elections. Oh, well, that's going to... Why is this happening? When I sat with Benjamin Netanyahu 7 years ago, I told him it was going to happen. Because none of us wanted to look at the truth. Iran has repeatedly called for the destruction of Israel, and clearly Iran, with nuclear weapons, makes them understandably anxious. Yet, the press continues to report that it's Israel that is the aggressor. You and I both know we have a responsibility to our kids to understand our special relationship with Israel and who the real bad guys are and the importance of protecting and standing with Israel against true evil. Switch gears. Why prepare? There's only food shortages, drought, and fire. Drought is pummeling the heartland of America and all around the globe. 200 million metric tons of grain and oil seeds will be lost. In other words, there is a global food shortage, and it is likely to get worse. In India, people now are reportedly starving. Hundreds allegedly dug up a riverbed to retrieve rotten rice that had been deemed unfit to consume and had been dumped all alongside the railroad. People dug it up and ate it. Why? There's a food shortage, severe. Corn crops here are now drying up. Korea is suffering from its worst drought in more than 100 years. South America suffering as well. We've also seen the wildfires tearing across our own country. The pressure is now on in Australia. I got this from a friend who lives in Australia last night. What an amazing story. Australia's wheat crop is critical because they're the breadbasket of the world now, because everything else is failing. Officials know that we have to hope that Australia and Latin America has normal weather. And if they don't, we only have a few months before severe food shortages become even more brutal all across the globe. But is there a single leader even saying that to you? Is there a single leader that has sat down and said to you, look, I know this is going to be really unpopular. I know people are going to hate me for it. They're going to call me names for it. But look, we have a responsibility to prepare for these shortages so we can help each other. Will you do it? Or will you merely claw for your own existence? Will you be part of the solution or part of the problem? Will we rise above the partisan bickering and deal with what we all know is coming? The Democrats were saying that we were going to bankrupt Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, that it was going broke. And they've been saying it for years. So have the Republicans. Why are we arguing? We all recognize the same problem. And when one side is in power and they say, we'll fix it, then the other side says, no, it's not really a problem. That's too dangerous. It's fine. What? Are we going to fix it, or are we going to continue to go down a divisive road? Richard Trumka, who bragged about how his union was organized now to disrupt Romney and Ryan rallies. He bragged. Richard, are you 10? I think we need to redefine leadership in it, because that's not leadership. That's what middle schoolers do at recess. And that's only to stop us from talking about the real issues and preparing. We're being presented with a very clear choice. When Obama was caught on camera telling Joe the plumber that it was good to spread the wealth around to everybody, it was pretty clear to me what he meant. But a lot of people said, no, he didn't mean that. People couldn't bring themselves to accept it. Well, okay, now there's enough evidence to verify that, yes, he meant what he said. I mean, he's saying it now, not just in the front lawn, but he's saying it on the campaign trail. Here's the latest from over the weekend.